So Samsung officially announced the Galaxy Note 20 and the Note 20 Ultra, but unfortunately they still haven't addressed the elephant in the room. So let's quickly go over the updates that Samsung announced on the Note 20 Ultra. For a start, the screen size went from 6.8 inches up to 6.9 inches, while keeping the same QHD resolution. The big news here is that Samsung finally updated the refresh rate on the display, so now it goes up to 120 Hz. The bad news, on the other hand, is that you still can't choose 120 Hz while using the full resolution of the display. The other notable improvement is that they've improved the brightness of the display, so now it goes up to 1500 nits as opposed to 1200. In my opinion, this phone is probably going to have the best display on the market. Samsung also adopted the same camera sensor found on the Galaxy S20 Ultra, and they put it on the Note 20 Ultra. So it's a 108 megapixel sensor. But because a lot of people complained about the focus issues on that S20 Ultra, they fixed that by adding a laser autofocus system. So hopefully that's forever fixed. And I've seen the initial videos and it does seem like it's finally fixed. The other cameras are all 12 megapixels. So you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens as opposed to 16 on last year's model, but they've added a larger sensor, which in my opinion will probably result in better images. And then for the zoom lens, as opposed to the S20 Ultra, which had a 100x space zoom, they've actually used a periscope camera, but at 12 megapixels, and this can go up to 50x. To be honest, the 100x zoom was more of a gimmick and nobody would really make full use of it, so I'm quite happy with this, as I think this will actually take better pictures when you zoom in less than 10. Then there is the battery. They've improved the capacity from 4300 up to 4500. So hopefully that fixes some of the issues people had with last year's model when it comes to battery life. Unfortunately, they also reduced the charging speed. So it went from 45 watts down to 25 watts. That might not make much of a difference if you charge overnight, but it's still a bit of a bummer. So as you'd expect, they've also updated the internals, which is a very routine thing. So they've updated it from the 855 Snapdragon processor up to the 865 Plus. Unfortunately, they are still offering the Exynos chip for the rest of the world outside of the US. So that's really a shame. I mean, for regular users, you might not really notice that much, but there is about 10% to 20% difference when it comes to battery life. And you'll also notice that the performance of the GPU itself is a bit worse, and it gets worse over time the more you use the phone. So if you're a gamer, that is a proper shame. I was really hoping they'd finally move on from using the Exynos chips, but unfortunately they are still using them. One big difference, which is also dedicated to the people who actually use the pen on the Note 20, is that the response time has been moved from 42 milliseconds down to just 9 milliseconds. So when you're trying to draw anything on the display, you'll notice it's much quicker to register what you're trying to put in. This is a small change, but in my opinion, if you're a heavy S Pen user, you're gonna absolutely love this change. And of course, how can I forget the design? Honestly, I think they've absolutely nailed it this year. So they've replaced the glossy finish on the back of the Note 10 Plus, and now it's more of a frosted glass finish, which I absolutely love. And the color options they're offering are really nice. So there's this bronze color as well as the green color, and then there's this gray color, and they all look really good. I'm especially impressed with the bronze color, it just looks awesome. One big difference when it comes to the internals is that the storage is now UFS 3.1 as opposed to 3.0. And this does make a difference when it comes to readability and the speed. So that's a really good thing. They've also reduced the RAM from 12 gigabytes down to 8. And their explanation is that the new UFS speeds actually compensate for this. So that's something we're gonna have to see when we get our hands on the device. Now let's talk about the regular Note 20. So for a start, it costs $1,000, which is less than the $1,250 on the more expensive sibling. So what are the compromises here? Firstly, instead of getting a glass back finish the same as the Note 20 Ultra, you're actually getting polycarbonate plastic, something that really makes me scratch my head. This is not a cheap device, and this shouldn't be the case. I personally don't have anything against polycarbonate plastic, but when you're charging so much and the same material is found on devices that cost about $200, it just makes you wonder why. Also, the latency of the S Pen has been moved down from 42 to 26 milliseconds on the regular Note 20, as opposed to 9 seconds. This won't make much of a difference for you if you're a very casual user of the pen. The battery capacity is also slightly smaller, so you get 4300 milliamps as opposed to 4500. And the biggest downgrade is naturally in the camera department. So instead of the 108 megapixel sensor, you're actually getting a very good 64 megapixel sensor. I expect there to be a difference between them, but to be honest, not that much, considering how far we've advanced when it comes to software optimization. And of course, the Note 20 is actually a bit smaller than the Note 20 Ultra. So instead of a 6.9-inch display, you're getting a 6.7-inch display. The resolution is also 1080p as opposed to QHD. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered all the differences. As I've said, these phones are pretty awesome, and I can't wait to get my hands on them. But you should definitely keep in mind the fact that they're still using the Exynos processors for most of the world, which is really a bummer. Also, it's a bit confusing why they downgraded the charging speed from 45 watts down to 25 watts. But for me personally, I don't think that makes much of a difference. I also expect both devices to have decent battery life, but nothing spectacular. So yeah, these are pretty much my first thoughts on the new Note 20 series. I hope it was helpful to you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.